This is the Hera H6, and this is the review of the Hera H6. The first video that I uploaded on this gun was essentially a recap of the first range day and the complete disaster that it was. I am very happy to say that I seem to have fixed it and also found one of its quirks. Now, that's not to say things went perfectly, and we'll get more into that in a second. But very quickly, if you did watch the previous video, or if you haven't and you're interested in this rifle, you absolutely should watch that video. TLDR, the gun was not feeding properly. More specifically, this magazine well was not screwed in all the way. And we were talking fractions of a millimeter, at most 1 single millimeter, where it wasn't screwed in enough, and therefore it wasn't picking up the following rounds, or any rounds. And that even occurred with the gun, or the magazine that it came with, which is just unacceptable. So, screwed in all of these, I went out to test it, and it appeared to work mostly. So, first thing that you have to know about this rifle is it is extraordinarily picky on magazines. This is the magazine it comes with. It says it's a Hera H6 magazine on it itself, and this did not work out of the box, which is ridiculous. But now that this has been fixed, it works, but not flawlessly. I had one hang up on this still with it, so that tells me that the magwell is just a bit poorly designed. But it did work 95% of the time. Now, the thing with this magazine of why you might care to use it over other magazines is simply because the follower, in comparison to a PMag, is a lot more square. And therefore, and actually, you can kind of see it from the above angle. They're very similar, but this is ever so slightly flatter, which leads to the bolt stopping on it. But it's still angled just a bit that if you really push it hard, it will go over it. So the last round hold open that they advertise is dubious at best. It's basically just a, beefed up follower. Now the PMag was very similar. As you can see, the followers are almost identical, not quite. And so they performed almost identically. The PMag, I believe this is a M2 or Gen 2. Yep, M2. So this would work 95% of the time. I had 1 or 2 failures to pick up the last round that was in it. Magazine that absolutely positively would not work is the cross mag. It was just shambolic. This thing will not work in this gun, period. I believe the follower or the magazine catch here is like a millimeter too low. It just won't pick up any rounds, no matter how many are in the magazine. You cannot use cross mags with this gun. But you can use LAR pistol magazines. These are, I believe, Duramag? These worked flawlessly. I did not have a single problem with this magazine. It worked excellently, and of course it's 10 rounds in Canada, for now. So these are the magazines you should absolutely use if you're looking to use these. Now, if you're not in Canada and you're interested in this rifle, of the suggestions, I would say try some metal Stanag magazines. You might have more success with them than with the other stuff. Quite honestly, I don't really know why. I assume it's in the geometry of the mag catch here and where it's positioned relative to the feed lips, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you do buy this gun, I can with confidence say that these magazines work. And if you want to do more testing, maybe go along the lines of a metal Stanag magazine. And now I have one last negative with this rifle, and that is the handguard. As you can see, the handguard has started to separate, which is not great. And I think, again, that's because the screws that were on here were not tightened down enough. Again, not acceptable. If for a gun that's $1,000 or under, I can, whatever, but this gun is not that. right? This gun is like $1,600 MSRP. That cannot be happening. So I'm going to fix this real quick, and then I'll come back. All right, everything is back in place now. I've taken off the scope so you can see. If this were to happen to you, you wouldn't need to worry about losing 0 if you had anything that was out here, or about anything coming loose, because as you can see, there are not 1 but 2 locking mechanisms. So long as this one is a bit shorter, right? So if this comes out, you still have a locking mechanism up here that will prevent the handguard from twisting. So you'd have to have a catastrophic failure. So on one hand, probably manufacturer defect for not tightening these screws enough. On the other hand, good design for potentially mitigating that issue. You can pick which one is worse or better. Now, again, I'll quickly go over these as I have gone over them before. The controls on this are fantastic. Safety is in a very intuitive position, and it is very easy to actuate. The bolt in relation to your pistol grip or your grip in general is very easy to actuate and reach. The only control that sucks, kind of, and I'm not going to say fully sucks, is the magazine release. Having it be on the bottom side leads to slightly awkward positioning, but I was actually a bit surprised that it became more intuitive the more I did it. So this is definitely a manual of arms thing. It will feel weird when you first pick it up and when you first use it, but the more you use it, the more you'll get used to it, and it's actually fine. Now, of course, the trigger is absolutely outstanding. It is, I think it's the best trigger that I've ever felt, and I've felt a bunch of trigger techs. It has a super clean break, and it has a super light pull, but you still feel it. Like, I don't know how else to describe it other than almost perfect. The only thing that I would change is I would love if there was optional trigger shoes just for curved triggers, because I prefer a curved trigger, but the feel of the trigger is outstanding. There is no question in my mind that anything in terms of accuracy related to the trigger is entirely on the operator of the rifle, not the trigger. The trigger is not going to hold you back. Speaking of the accuracy, I tested it at 100 meters, and I stretch it out to 200 meters at steel because that's the farthest I can shoot at my range. But the 100-meter accuracy shots, a little caveat, was not ideal. With the snow and the ice and the benches, I had to put it up on a bench rest, so it wasn't as stable as it could have been. Not to mention I'm using a cheaper bipod, which I will fix. I will get a different bipod in the future for next year. But regardless of all that, I was very pleasantly surprised by the accuracy using specific ammo. So I used, I believe it was Federal 50 grain. I can't remember. I'll put up on, for all the ammo types I'm talking about, I'll put up the exactly what they are on screen. But for me, I'm just going to say the grainage because that's how I've memorized them for the test. Federal 50 grain did not work well. It was very inaccurate. We're talking like 2 to 3 MOA. No, don't use that unless it's the only ammo you have. I tested 255 grains. One, I believe, was PMC, and the other was, I can't remember the name. Again, put it up on screen. The PMC did not, for whatever reason, didn't really work well. I don't know why, but the other ammo, the other 55 grain, worked really well. I was actually very surprised, considering it's like cheap range ammo that, you know, you just use for, you know, training. I was quite surprised that it was as accurate as it was. We're talking like 1.5 to 2 MOA, and that's with my unstable position. I think you probably could get a solid 1.5 MOA consistently with 55 grain of that specific kind of ammo. Now, I also tested some heavier Federal Sierra Match King bullets. Was it 68 or 69 grain? Nice. And those were very accurate. Easily 1 MOA, if you, with my weird setup, well, it's more like 1.2 MOA with my weird setup. Without my weird setup, with a proper bipod, with a proper stable shooting position, I think you could easily get 1 MOA. I don't know about sub MOA. I don't think you have the barrel length for that. I think in order to get sub MOA, Hera would probably need to release like a 20-inch barrel, but regardless, it's still an excellent rifle for accuracy. And that meant it was very fun to stretch out a little bit. Obviously, 5.56, 2.23 can go way further than 100. I was only able to go to 200 meters because that's what the range is, but easily rapid follow-up shots on 200-meter target, which I'll show here. It is a little bit edited just for brevity's sake, but not that much. Easy shots. I think this is a really fun rifle to use for blinking steel at that distance. Now that leads to the ultimate question of what is this for? And I touched on this in the previous video, but this gun has, in my opinion, 3 distinct use cases. Number 1 is just a range toy, right? This gun, if you don't like the look of it, you're never going to want to buy this. Okay, so first of all, you have to like the look of it for any of these scenarios. But if you like the look of it and you just want a really cool, fun range toy, I think this is it. This is, in my opinion, better than the CZ600 Trail as a range toy. The CZ600 Trail is an excellent gun, but it excels in what it's meant to do, which is for the range or for the trail, backpacking, things like that. This is better as a range gun, simply because it has way more rail space for you to put whatever accessories you want on it. If you're running a red dot on it, you can put a foregrip, and that's really comfortable to use. You can put a bipod, whatever bipod you want. You're not limited by the size of the rail like you are on the CZ600 Trail. So this one is really good for the range. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to very tentatively say hunting/predator defense. It can be used for that. It is not ideal. It's a very nice weight, but it's not the best for it, but it can be used. So in comparison, the Type 81 SR that I reviewed at the start of the year, I very explicitly said, don't use this for hunting. Now, yes, of course, as a firearm, it can be used for hunting, but the weight of it completely killed, for me, the possibility, especially in comparison to any other 7.62x39 rifle, that it just didn't make sense to take it out. This one is kind of in the middle. It's not, you wouldn't be crazy for taking this out for varmint hunting or for predator defense, but it's not the best option either. It's kind of like, if you want to buy it for one of the 2 other reasons that I'm going to mention, then, all right, you can take it out, use it for that as a dual purpose, so to speak. But you probably wouldn't buy this specifically for that purpose, because there are just better options available. Now, the third and final option is, sadly, very relevant to the Canadian market right now, and that is manual action divisions and competitions, or not to get around, as a modern looking option when all of our semi-autos are banned. Now, this is a very fresh thing. I'm recording this the day after the announcement, and I don't think, if you want my full thoughts on it, go watch that video. But I don't think that ban is going to last very long, at most 1.5 years. So in the meantime, you could use this. It's still an excellent rifle if you're doing manual action competitions. It's not going to be as good as a pump action rifle or something, or a straight pull rifle, but you can mad minute it if you really want to. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is the pistol grip is set up in such a way that you can easily hold on to the bolt and use your ring finger to pull the trigger. That is a very easy thing, and because of the lightness of the trigger, it's actually very comfortable to do. When I was doing the first range test, I tried the Mad Minute. Of course, I was having feeding issues with the magazines at the time, but I was still able to rapidly get shots off. I would highly recommend. With all that said, what do I think of it overall? I really like this gun. It is not a flawless gun by any stretch, as you have seen throughout the video. And it is quite annoying how some of these things have popped up, but man, there's just so much to like about this gun. I really love the look of it. It's not for everyone. The trigger is outstanding. The bolt is super smooth. It's enough for me to overlook some of the problems that came from the factory because I was able to fix them. If those problems were not fixable, there's no way I could recommend this gun. But the problems are fixable, and it's just picky on mags. And so I have to say that this is just an awesome gun. It's one of those things that's, should you really like a gun this much? Probably not, but it's just so damn cool. And if you really like the look of it and you want to buy it, I don't think you can go wrong with it. Just be aware of the picky magazines and make sure that your magazine well is screwed in enough. So, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I've got one more review coming out at the end of or before the end of the year, and then I have one final end of the year video, and then that's it for 2024. Now 2025, as I said in the gun ban video, is completely disrupted now, my plans for what I was going to review, but I still have a list of other things that I want to review that I think are pretty cool, some specifically for the Canadian market, some that will apply to, well, I think the US and Europe. So if you're interested, stick around, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.